Mirror's Edge is set in a dystopian future where people called runners are the only meaningful way to keep communications a secret from law enforcement. These runners use parkour to navigate rooftops, buildings, and any other obstacles that get in their path. They are akin to a modern-day courier with a bit of a flair for the dramatic. Unfortunately, this actively fun premise is only the backdrop of the setting, so the story does not take advantage of the unsavory occupation that the player has chosen. Instead of that, it turns to resisting the authority of law enforcement for the sole purpose of rescuing your sister from being falsely accused of murder. While everyone might want to be the savior of their family in an unjust society, treating the police as an enemy is not an ideal way to do it since it forces the guilt onto the main character. Given the nature of the game, it is a small wonder that the police want to take shots at runners, since these people aren't just simple couriers. Now to get to the meat and bones of the review. Mirror's Edge has actually extremely fun gameplay. The majority of the game is fast and reactionary, with only a few brief pauses here and there that seem more like where should I go next moments. The forced speed of the game causes many misfires, but the overabundance of checkpoints keeps the frustration significantly lower. Taken together, this game is extremely satisfying. But it isn't all steak and potatoes. For one, the controls are extremely unforgiving. Tap the controls at slightly wrong intervals, and the actions that Faith takes will ultimately fail. This leads to more frustration than is necessary. I feel that as long as the inputs are correct, the timing should be more flexible. But this also adds an element of challenge for players that do not want their hands held as they explore this dystopian setting. Another potential problem lies within the combat itself. It feels like they want it to be more realistic side, with Faith being only able to take a few blows before kicking the bucket. It also makes engagement with single enemies difficult, let alone the multiples that the game throws at you. If there is any consolation, while you can only absorb a few hits, you are capable of recovering from any blow with just a little bit of time without getting hit. So if there is a suitable cover, taking a hit here and there is not the end. Like any game, though, the game constantly ramps up the difficulty of the encounters, making opportunities to recover significantly less available. Unfortunately, the troller's regeneration also makes one of the key skills that the game teaches you completely useless. This would be the roll upon landing. Nowhere in the game is the roll necessary to survive a fall. Either you die because you missed the safe zone, or you take a small amount of damage and keep running. While this makes the game a little bit more forgiving for failing the intended sequence, the end result makes rolling only a necessary skill for people that are interested in playing the game quickly. Overall, my criticism for the gameplay is almost entirely nitpicking, since the game's fluidity and pacing keeps the player engaged. In a few words, the game is just fun, which is the most important part. Another aspect I'd like to tackle is the story. Well, there is one. That might seem like a harsh criticism, but the story can be simplified to Faith saving her sister from being falsely accused. There are a few slight twists here and there, but mostly the story boils down to going from one objective to the next. You could take the story entirely out and almost have the exact same experience. This leads me back to one of my earlier points when I was introducing the game. It developed this dystopian setting where the emphasis was on runners delivering communications. This game would have been just as fun, if not more so, doing nothing but those deliveries. Not enough? You want a story to go with it? Well, the police are trying to crack down on runners because they further enable crime within the city. Eventually, the player is set with a choice either to resist the authorities or escape from the city. Each choice has its obstacles to overcome. As a wanted criminal, simply escaping would be difficult and would likely require getting some assistance from your employers. The other end of it would be an all-out war with law enforcement, which would involve exposing corruption, building up public support, and the occasional combat sequence. Doesn't feel like much of a story? Well, neither is what they provided. Now for my closing remarks. Mirror's Edge is fun to play, but is far from the perfect game. If you're interested in a game that is fast, fun, and challenging, I'd highly recommend Mirror's Edge. But if you're looking for a game that holds your hand or has a rich story, it really isn't the game for you. Overall, I'd give this game a 6.5 out of 10. This is not a bad score. Most games, in my opinion, should fall probably between the 4 and 6 rating, making this game slightly above average.